As the saying goes, curiosity killed the cat. But today we are telling a story about mice. So instead of a cat, curiosity will kill a mouse. Let's begin. Once upon a time, there lived two cousins, a country mouse named Monty and a city mouse named Charlie. Monty lived a simple, peaceful life in a cozy hole in a vast field. He spent his days gathering fresh grains and berries, living off the land and the seasons.
Ho, ho, ho!
At night, he would snuggle up in his nest of soft hay, watching the moonbeams dance on the walls of his burrow. His life was quiet and uneventful, but it was good. Charlie, on the other hand, lived in a grand house in the bustling city. He shared this abode with a family of humans who, without meaning to, provided him and his colony with regular meals. Every evening after they had their dinners, they would leave behind delicious crumbs for Charlie and his friends.
Ho, ho, ho!
Charlie's life was full of feasts and parties, and he loved it. One day, while nibbling on a particularly tasty piece of cheese that had fallen off a human's plate, Charlie had an idea. He decided to send an invitation to his cousin, Monty. "Come visit me in the city," it read. "You won't believe the delights." Monty was a little hesitant. The city was a long way from his home, and he'd heard stories about its dangers from other mice who'd made the journey.
Ho, ho, ho!
But the invitation piqued his curiosity. Besides, he thought, life back home was rather boring. Perhaps a visit to the city would be just what he needed. So Monty packed a small bag with some of his favorite berries and set off on the long journey. When Monty finally reached Charlie's house, he was exhausted. The city was much busier than he had imagined, and he had to dodge carts, dogs, and grumpy humans to get to his cousin's doorstep.
Ho, ho, ho!
But when he knocked timidly on the wall with his little paw, Charlie came bounding to the door to greet him. "Welcome, welcome, cousin," he cried. "I'm so glad you could make it. Prepare for a feast." And with that, Charlie whisked Monty away to the grand dining room where all the leftover food from the humans' dinner party was waiting for them. There were crumbs of rich cake, bits of cheese, and even drops of sweet jam. Monty's eyes widened. This was certainly more exciting than his usual berries.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Oh, it's so good to be here," he sighed happily as he dug into a piece of bread with jam. "This is just what I needed." Charlie beamed at his cousin's delight. He lapped up some milk that had been left in a saucer and said, "Just wait till tomorrow night. That's when the best parties are here. The humans have a ball in the ballroom, and we get to sneak in and enjoy the scraps. It'll be an amazing night." Monty nodded, too full of delicious food and excitement to say anything.
Ho, ho, ho!
That night, as the humans bustled about the house getting ready for their party, Monty and Charlie met back in the dining room. "Are you ready for tonight, Monty?" Charlie asked, his whiskers twitching with excitement. "More than anything," Monty replied, licking his chops in anticipation. Together, they crept through the shadows of the house to the ballroom, where the party was in full swing.
Ho, ho, ho!
Humans in fine clothes waltzed around the room, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. And as the music swelled, so did Monty's fear. He suddenly felt very out of place and wished he were back in the safety of his burrow. "It's all right, cousin," Charlie said, sensing Monty's unease. "Just stick close to me, and we'll be fine." With Charlie's reassuring words, Monty forced himself to stay.
Ho, ho, ho!
And soon he was having a wonderful time. The party was everything Charlie had promised, with plenty of tasty morsels to go round. The humans didn't notice the mice at all, and the other city mice welcomed Monty warmly, making him feel right at home. They feasted on sweetmeats and cheeses, and when the humans finally left, they danced on the tables, celebrating their good fortune.
Ho, ho, ho!
But as the night wore on, Monty started to feel another emotion besides excitement. He felt very, very full. All the delicious food had made him uncomfortably sleepy. "I think I need a nap," he yawned, stretching out on a velvet cushion. "Why don't you come with me, Charlie? We can take turns keeping watch, and then we'll both get some rest." Charlie hesitated. He wanted to keep the party going, but his cousin looked so tired that he finally agreed.
Ho, ho, ho!
They curled up together, dozing lightly, when suddenly squeak, squeak, meow. A pair of glowing eyes appeared in the doorway, followed by a sleek gray cat. Monty and Charlie's eyes flew open. They had completely forgotten about the danger that lurked in places like this. The cat stalked closer, its tail swishing slowly. "Run, Monty!" Charlie screamed. "Hide in the curtains!" But Monty was frozen with fear. He couldn't move.
Ho, ho, ho!
The cat was too quick, too graceful. Before Monty could react, the cat pounced. He closed his eyes tight, waiting for the worst. But it never came. When he cautiously opened his eyes again, he saw the cat disappearing through the window, something clutched firmly between his teeth. Charlie was gone. In a panic, Monty raced to the window and looked out. He saw the cat disappearing down an alley. What had happened to Charlie? Had he been taken away and eaten?
Ho, ho, ho!
Overwhelmed with grief and fear, Monty stayed by the window for hours, refusing to leave until the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains. As the morning light streamed in, Monty knew he couldn't stay in the house anymore. He had to get back to the safety of his burrow. But before he left, he decided to search for Charlie one last time. He scurried through the rooms, calling out his cousin's name, but there was no reply.
Ho, ho, ho!
Just as he was about to give up hope, he saw something in the dining room that made him freeze. There, under the table, was Charlie's little red backpack. He quickly unzipped it and found a crumpled piece of paper. Unfolding it carefully, he read, "I'm sorry I left you alone last night, Monty. I had to escape from the city. It's too dangerous here. I'm going to try to make a new home in the countryside. If you want to see me again, follow this trail. I'll be waiting for you."
Ho, ho, ho!
At the bottom of the note, there was a drawing of a carrot with a little paw print beside it. Monty smiled. He knew exactly where to find Charlie. The note was like a trail of breadcrumbs leading him to his cousin. And so, without wasting any more time, Monty set off to find him. Following the path, he soon found himself outside in the bright sunshine. The city noise faded behind him, and he entered a beautiful meadow filled with wildflowers and buzzing insects.
Ho, ho, ho!
In the middle of the meadow stood a cozy burrow with a carrot peeping out from beside the entrance. As Monty approached, he heard a familiar voice. "Welcome to my new home, Monty." There, sitting on the doorstep, was Charlie, looking happier than ever. Together, the two cousins settled into their new life in the country. They shared stories about their adventures in different worlds, and Monty even learned how to waltz from Charlie.
Ho, ho, ho!
But every evening before bed, they would sneak out for a little while and share a juicy apple they had stolen from a nearby orchard. They would munch on their treat, watching the sunset over the fields, and whispering secrets only they understood. Life wasn't as exciting as it had been in the city, but it was peaceful and fun, and most importantly, it was safe. The country might not have had grand feasts and fancy balls, but it had something even better, true friendship.
Ho, ho, ho!
And so that is how the two mice who lived completely different lives learned to understand each other and appreciate the things they had in common. The end.
Ho, ho, ho!
Monty and Charlie were having the time of their lives in their new home. There was so much food around and hardly any cats. It was paradise for two adventurous mice. One day, as they were busy rummaging through a cupboard, they heard a familiar sound. Squeak, squeak. They froze and stared at each other. "Do you hear that?" whispered Monty, his whiskers trembling. "It sounds like someone's coming," squeaked Charlie.
Ho, ho, ho!
But it wasn't just anyone. As they began to nibble, a terrifying shadow fell over them. "Run!" squeaked Charlie. A huge cat suddenly pounced, its claws swiping dangerously close. The two mice scurried under a heavy cupboard, their hearts pounding. "Phew, that was close," whispered Charlie once the cat had gone. "That happens sometimes," said Monty with a shrug. He knew there was no point worrying about it. Just as they cautiously crept out from under the cupboard, they heard a loud rumble.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Here comes the broom," yelped Charlie, darting into a tiny crack. A giant broom swept through the room, missing Monty by inches. "I don't like this place anymore," said Monty, shaking his head. "All we do is hide from the cat and the broom. It's not an adventure, it's a nightmare." Charlie sighed. "But where can we go? Don't you think all the houses are the same? Big, scary dogs, noisy humans, and those giant brooms and vacuum cleaners," said Monty, shuddering.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Well, maybe there is somewhere else," squeaked Charlie, trying to think. "Somewhere without danger, somewhere we can live peacefully." Suddenly, both mice froze. They remembered the old abandoned house at the end of the street, the one everyone feared because it was filled with creepy crawlies and scary noises. But to Monty and Charlie, it sounded like a dream come true. No humans, no pets, and most importantly, no brooms or vacuum cleaners.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Let's go there," said Monty, his eyes shining with excitement. And so the two friends set off on their journey to the abandoned house. The walk seemed endless. Every now and then, the bushes or trees would make strange noises, startling them. Just when they thought they would never get there, they saw it. The old house looked like a spooky castle, but to Monty and Charlie, it looked like a safe haven. Taking a deep breath, they dashed across the yard and squeezed in through a hole in the wall.
Ho, ho, ho!
Inside, cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and dust covered every corner. But to the two adventurous mice, it looked like paradise. They quickly explored their new home, scampering up curtains, under tables, and behind chairs. There were no signs of cats, dogs, or humans. The house was perfect. Feeling very proud of themselves for finding such a great place, they started to settle in. They made their home under the floorboards, and soon enough, they found lots of food in the pantry. Life was good.
Ho, ho, ho!
One evening, as they were enjoying a piece of bread they'd found, they heard a loud crash followed by a slithering sound. "What was that?" squeaked Charlie, hiding behind a loaf of bread. "I don't know," said Monty, his voice trembling. Then they heard a voice. Squawk, squawk. Startled, the two mice peeked from behind the bread. To their horror, they saw a huge black crow hopping closer and closer. "Run!" yelled Monty, and the two mice dashed away as fast as they could.
Ho, ho, ho!
They ran and hid in the pantry, their hearts pounding. When they finally dared to look out, the coast was clear. But where could they go now? The house was too small for them to keep hiding. Just then, they spotted a small hole in the wall. "Quick, let's go through here," squeaked Charlie, and they squeezed through the hole. Outside, they found themselves in a big, beautiful garden. Flowers of all colors and shapes surrounded them, and the sweet smell of honey and apples filled the air.
Ho, ho, ho!
In the distance, they heard the sound of buzzing bees and birds singing. Monty and Charlie had never seen anything like it. Wow, they both said at the same time, forgetting all about their troubles. As they started to explore the garden, they noticed a wooden house in the distance. It looked like a miniature village with tiny windows and a little door. "Can you believe it? A house for bugs," squeaked Charlie. Monty nodded, his eyes wide with wonder.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Look, there's even a path leading up to it," he said, pointing his nose. The two mice looked at each other and smiled. This was the perfect place to live. No more dangerous animals, no more brooms or vacuum cleaners. They could start a new life here. As they approached the bug's house, they heard a friendly voice. "Hello, welcome to our humble abode," said a ladybug sitting on the doorstep. "We were wondering if we could live here," squeaked Charlie.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Of course, why not?" replied the ladybug with a smile. "There's plenty of room for everyone." Monty and Charlie thanked her and started to move in. The interior of the bug's house was just as amazing as the exterior. There were cozy little rooms with tiny chairs and tables. In the corner, they could see a group of ants carrying crumbs into a little pantry. "Would you like some tea?" asked a butterfly fluttering past.
Ho, ho, ho!
"Oh, thank you, but we're in a hurry to unpack," squeaked Charlie. The butterfly nodded and flew away. As Monty and Charlie were busy making their new home, they didn't notice a pair of glowing eyes watching them from the window. The two mice had just finished arranging their things when they heard a loud crash. "Run!" yelled Monty, and the two friends hid under a leaf as a giant frog hopped by. "That was close," squeaked Charlie once the frog had hopped away.
Ho, ho, ho!
"I don't want to live here anymore," he said. "It's too scary. Let's go back to Monty's house. At least there isn't any danger there." Monty sighed. He couldn't believe how spoiled his friend had become. "You're right, Charlie. I'm sorry I brought you here. Let's go home." But when they arrived, everything had changed. The house looked different somehow, and a strange feeling had taken over. It felt cold and empty.
Ho, ho, ho!
Later that night, as they tried to find a quiet corner to sleep, the house was filled with the noise of humans walking, doors slamming, and strange machines whirring. Monty tossed and turned, unable to rest. The next morning, Monty looked tired and pale. "Thank you for your hospitality, Charlie," he said, "but I must go home." Charlie looked surprised. "But why?" "We have so much food, so many adventures," he said, gesturing to the half-filled cupboards and the messy playroom.
Ho, ho, ho!
"I don't want any of it, Charlie. I just want to go home." Monty's voice was weak and shaky. He longed for the comfort of his own bed and the warmth of his family. Charlie looked at his friend. He could tell Monty was really upset. "Okay," he squeaked. "I'll help you pack your things." As they gathered Monty's things, Charlie couldn't help but feel a little sad. He was going to miss his friend. He had only had a few days with him, but they had become the best of friends.
Ho, ho, ho!
When Monty was ready to leave, Charlie walked him to the door. "Will you come visit?" he asked hopefully. Monty smiled and nuzzled his friend. "Of course, Charlie. You'll come visit me, right?" "Of course," squeaked Charlie, waving goodbye until he couldn't see Monty anymore. Then he turned and slowly walked back inside. As the door closed behind him, Charlie felt a pang of sadness. But then he shook his head. He had a whole house to explore, and there were so many adventures waiting for him.
Ho, ho, ho!
Soon, he was scampering up curtains and down lampshades again, his heart filled with joy. Being an adventurous mouse wasn't so bad after all.
Ho, ho, ho!
So, once upon a time, in a quaint little village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling lake, there lived a wise old owl named Professor Sophocles. He was renowned throughout the land for his extensive knowledge and sharp intellect. One day, two young mice, eager to learn from the great professor, approached his tree hollow. They introduced themselves as Charlie and Monty, City Mouse and Country Mouse respectively.
Ho, ho, ho!
And they explained that they were looking for a mentor who could guide them through the complexities of life. Professor Sophocles, always willing to share his wisdom, welcomed them and posed a question. What do you desire to learn? Charlie, the City Mouse, ambitious and spirited, exclaimed, "Oh, Professor, we want to know the secrets to success, how to live the best life possible, how to be the most successful mice in the whole world."
Ho, ho, ho!
Monty, the Country Mouse, modest and cautious, added, "Yes, but also how to avoid the pitfalls of life, how to stay safe and find happiness along the way." Professor Sophocles nodded understandingly. "An excellent question," he hooted. "Indeed, these are essential lessons for a fulfilling life. But I must tell you, the answers aren't simple." He took a deep breath, looked at the curious mice before him, and began.
Ho, ho, ho!
Life is a tapestry woven with threads of joy and sorrow, excitement and tranquility, luxury and simplicity. Your path will be filled with choices, each leading to different experiences. The secret to the best life lies in understanding the value of each choice. Professor Sophocles paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "Let me share a fable with you, one that will illustrate this concept beautifully."
Ho, ho, ho!
He then told them the story of the City Mouse and the Country Mouse. Once upon a time, there were two friends, Charlie and Monty, who lived completely different lives. Charlie resided in the bustling city, where tall buildings scraped the sky and the streets teemed with activity. He was a City Mouse, always eager for a taste of adventure.
Ho, ho, ho!
On the other hand, Monty lived in the peaceful countryside, surrounded by fields and forests that stretched as far as the eye could see. He was a country mouse, content with the simplicity of his rural life. One day, Charlie decided he'd had enough of the humdrum of his everyday life. He wanted something more, something exciting. So he invited Monty to visit him in the city for a taste of the high life. Monty, though hesitant, couldn't resist his friend's enthusiasm.
Ho, ho, ho!
Upon arriving in the city, Charlie led Monty to his luxurious apartment filled with delectable food and fine fabrics. He regaled Monty with tales of his daring escapades, keeping him up late into the night with his animated stories. Monty, overwhelmed by the grandeur, found himself swept up in the excitement. As days turned into weeks, Monty began to enjoy the luxuries of city life.
Ho, ho, ho!
He dined on the finest cheeses and breads, sipped on sweet wines, and reveled in the comfort of Charlie's cozy home. However, he couldn't shake off a persistent feeling of unease. The city's bustling streets, once filled with wonder, now seemed chaotic and overwhelming. The towering buildings that had impressed him so much initially now loomed over him, making him feel like just a tiny speck in a vast, uncaring world.
Ho, ho, ho!
And the grand feasts that Charlie hosted, instead of being delightful, now felt like a burden. The preparation, the constant stream of guests, and the never-ending chatter became draining for him. Meanwhile, Charlie was in his element. He loved the city's energy. Each day brought a new adventure, a new acquaintance, a new escapade to tell. To him, life was all about embracing the new, the exciting, the different.
Ho, ho, ho!
He thrived on the constant stimulation, the rush of living on the edge. But one evening, as they sat in Charlie's lavish apartment, Monty sighed. "Yes, you have grand feasts and exciting adventures, but they come with too much fear and too little peace. I prefer my simple grains and quiet field. I may not have cakes and cheese, but I have freedom and safety. I'd rather have a dry crust in peace than a banquet in fear.
Ho, ho, ho!
Charlie, surprised by his friend's sudden change of heart, tried to persuade him. But Monty, you've seen the wonders of the city, the delicious food, the thrilling adventures. Don't you want to experience all that life has to offer? The world is full of excitement. Why settle for a boring, quiet life in the countryside? But Monty was resolute. He realized that true contentment didn't lie in the pursuit of thrills or the accumulation of material comforts.
Ho, ho, ho!
It lay in the tranquility of his simple life, a life that might seem dull to some, but which was rich with peace and serenity for him. So, Monty returned to his peaceful hole in the country. He enjoyed his simple meals and slept soundly every night, happy with his quiet life, while Charlie continued his risky adventures in the city. The valuable lesson from the city mouse and the country mouse is, what seems exciting or luxurious isn't always better.
Ho, ho, ho!
Sometimes, a simple life with peace and safety is more valuable than a life of constant excitement and danger, even if it comes with many riches. Everyone has different ideas of what makes them happy. After finishing the tale, Professor Sophocles turned to his young listeners. Do you see, my dear students, why I chose to share this story with you? Charlie and Monty looked at each other, then back at the wise old owl.
Ho, ho, ho!
They understood. Life wasn't about constantly seeking the most excitement or comfort. It was about finding balance, about recognizing the value of each choice and accepting that sometimes the simple things in life were the most precious. They thanked the professor for his valuable lesson and went on their separate ways. Charlie, though still adventurous, now carried with him the memory of Monty's tranquil life.
Ho, ho, ho!
He understood that true fulfillment didn't lie in reckless abandon but in making calculated, well-thought-out choices, and Monty, emboldened by his friend's tales, started to see the merits of exploring the world. He realized that while simplicity and peace were comforting, a bit of adventure and exposure to the wider world wasn't harmful.
Ho, ho, ho!
And so, the two mice continued their journey through life, each applying the valuable lesson they learned from their different lifestyles and from the wise Professor Sophocles. They balanced each other's perspectives, making their lives richer, more meaningful and full of balance. As for Professor Sophocles, he continued to share his wisdom, guiding young creatures like Charlie
Ho, ho, ho!
and Monty to help them navigate the complexities of life and find their own paths to happiness and success. The end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more enchanting tales and valuable life lessons. And here's another story from us that we think you'll love. Until next time, keep exploring the world and all its wonders, and remember, the simplest moments can hold the greatest life lessons. Thank you for watching.
Ho, ho, ho!